at it and I was like, this can't be real. It looked like a green screen. Like, it looked so unrealistic, but like the fact that people were actually driving through this and like having to go home, it's really bad. And like a lot of people that I have on like social media talking about how like the air is just so bad to breathe. Like the air is so bad to breathe in. Like reminds me of like when we're here and all the fires were happening in Sonoma County and like all the air and how bad it was and how like orange and just it's so bad to inhale that. Like I just feel so bad for all of the people that had to evacuate out of their homes.
Yeah, there's like 6 fires. There's the Thomas Fire, the Rye Fire, the Creek Fire, the Skirball Fire, the Liberty Fire, and the Lilac Fire. Like that's 6 fires in one region. That's pretty intense.
It just personally saddens me because I'm from San Diego and I see that like a lot of fires are happening in San Diego right now. And like, I don't know, that's just going to affect, I don't know how it's going to affect because like when I go back is like places that like I grew up as a kid are going to be burned down or what?
Yeah, like, seeing here, it says the fires have forced 190,000 people out of their homes. And some people have, like, had to leave their homes with nothing except their pets and a couple of things. And like Anna was saying, there were 6 large wildfires that have scorched over 160,000 acres. And during this week,
Just this week,
this week, said officials with the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, or also known as CAL FIRE, and they have 5,700 firefighters out there working to contain the fires. That's honestly so, like, that's a lot of people, but at the same time, that's a lot of land, and that's a lot of fire to, like, fight.
Yeah, that's insane.
Do you guys feel like this is anything new, or that this is something just a part of everyday life that we have to
I feel like this is definitely new, just like how the fires up here shocked us. Like, there's like a small fire, how when like the fire that happened on off of 580 in those houses off of 73rd, I don't know if you know that is in East Oakland. It was like a fire that happened behind all these townhomes. That fire, I feel like that fire surprised a lot of people because one, it's just so close to neighborhoods. Like it's a small like townhouse neighborhood, and then right over the freeway there's like houses everywhere, neighborhood. I feel like that shocked a lot of people because one, it's on a hill, it was hot, it was windy. And the fires are hard to fight when it's windy and hot because it's just hot air blowing and hot air blowing against hot fire. And that just doesn't make anything better. And I feel like the fires in Sonoma was so shocking because so many people were killed and having like forced out of their homes and like forced to rebuild their homes. And that's going to cost a lot of money, like a lot of money. And I feel like same with Southern California, like they've had their fires like in the past few years. On social media, like I have seen that there have been a lot of fires there, like a lot of different fires. People like, oh my god, like look at the smoke. But like this is really bad because they're so big and they're so hard to contain, and they can easily spread with just some big winds. Some big winds could just take that fire wherever it wants to go and spread more.
Yeah, to me, like we know how there's like the occasional like little fire, but this is like 10 times more intense. Like, this is not normal. Definitely not normal. And I do believe that this is one of the symptoms of one of the things that was predicted for as the world changes with the global climate change. Like wildfires, droughts, intense weather, that kind of thing was predicted. Now we're seeing it in front of our faces.
It's just, for me, a very, I want to say, more humbling and saddening spiritual experience for me, because just for me and with my beliefs and just things that vibe with me is that this is just Mother Earth purging herself through all the evil and hate and anger that's being put on this world and all that humans are deciding to do against each other. And it's just boiling down, and with all that negative energy, it's really just affecting the earth and how we're treating the earth and how global warming and just the pollution and all that, like, it's really just reflecting of what we're doing. And pretty soon, it's just going to speed up faster, faster, and faster. We're not going to have enough resources to fight all the fires, enough resources to fight all the earthquakes, tsunamis, everything else.
And going back to what I was saying about how much money all those fires cost, about the damage, I recently saw that PG&E is being sued by Napa residents for like causing those fires because of like I guess you know, like gas lines and electricity, like stuff like that.
Something's bound to go wrong if you have like that much, like,
yeah,
power lines and things like that. because there's like more space for air.
And a lot of people like, and going back to like money wise, like it's a lot of wineries. Like we know Napa's wine country, so that's just some people have lost their businesses, like their long life businesses. Like actor Tamara Mori, her husband, like their family has a winery up there. And like that just wipes out your business. Like that's so much money put in. There's so many it's just a lot.
And also some of those wineries were so old, so that's like a part of California's history is now lost and burned down. Which, I mean, it's just gonna add up and create more. But to wrap up the fires, our next topic shall be the Oakland's new homeless sheds and how they're trying to fix homelessness within the Bay Area. There's one thing where within certain areas they want to build kind of like, I want to say, think of like certain parks or whatever, and they want to build almost like little shelter huts for them or whatever, so they can like put their stuff under, sleep in, be protected from the wind and rain. But the people that were trying to design it were actually trying to make some really, really bougie type, I want to say, hipster type homeless shelters, and that would take years to build and cost so much money. And the homeless people were already saying that this isn't stuff we need stuff that's going to be efficient and small and able to be done right now, not later.
From my research, I've seen that these homeless, they're sheds, not really shelters, like they're little sheds, like how you have like a tool shed, similar to like that, if you can imagine that. They're announced in early October, and they were made to fit up to 40 people, like all of them in total, a group of 20. And it was a lot of people, like social workers, that helped build it. And they said it's, if you're, a quote on sfsanfrancisco.cbslocal.com said, if you are encamped over from Castro to Market and 5th to 7th, you got an invitation, said Oakland's assistant to the city administrator, Joe DeVries. I don't know if I said that right. But I don't know, that comment, like I understand, like you want to help people, but just moving it down to like one group of people, like that's kind of weird to me. But a lot of, like, some people, they don't, like Miss Dolores was telling me earlier, like she spoke to someone and he basically said like he doesn't want to be told what to do when you move into these shelters. And I feel like that's what a lot of them, like they are adults, and like when you go to a homeless shelter, there are rules, like there are ground rules, just like if you're living with your parents or living with somebody that you don't know. And like them living in those sheds, like that's kind of like you're controlling them, like you can tell them what they can and cannot do. And when they live in these encampments in tent cities, like they're able to be free to do whatever they want because that's their home. That's what they know.
Well, would you rather sleep in a shed or sleep in the streets at that point?
But at the same time, it's that is the argument. But some people, they're just so comfortable. Like when I get off the freeway, when I get off 580, when I come to school, it's like it's a little section. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like once you're, I forgot what street
it's under the freeway.
Yeah,
it's an encampment.
It's an
a homeless encampment.
And it's like one day, like it's really cold. I seen like they burned a fire. Like they had their hands over, like
which could be dangerous.
Like it can be dangerous. And they had like their whole tent, their whole entire setup. And I feel like they're like, that's my setup. Like that's my house. It took so long for us to build it. Like some of them even have like couches and beds, and that's just their home. And they're just so used to that they don't want to have to move and have to live under someone else's roof and rules.
What about you? Would you rather be on the streets or in one of these sheds with rules?
I don't really know. I think I'd naturally say shed because that's more what I'm accustomed to. Kind of like having
four walls
and a nice bed to sleep in. But I can imagine it for someone who has lived on the street for years, the transition can be very difficult. Because, and I'm guessing the reason why some of them don't want to be told what to do might be due to traumatic experiences that drove them out onto the street, that kind of a thing. I wouldn't be surprised, how substance abuse comes from traumatic experiences and not having anything to grip onto, and kind of how, I'm guessing that, I'm probably just guessing here, but I'm guessing that the homeless population is just traumatized, and you can imagine that, there's LGBT youth out there who were driven out of their homes and that kind of a thing,
It could also be like people that have been in prison for years, and when they get out, they don't do well on the street because they don't know what to do. So I guess, maybe being on the street, you get so accustomed of living a certain way. And some of them have so much stuff. I think they're afraid of losing all that stuff that they've gathered in those shopping carts.
Something that they can grip on.
Exactly, something that's theirs. So I don't know. I mean, it will be interesting if we can go out there and actually talk to some of them at some point to really find out from their point of view. But I did see a guy on ABC News say that he just did not want to be told what to do and he would think about it. And at first I was kind of offended because I was like, well, how dare you say that you would rather just be on the street with all this stuff over here that not only brings, stops people from parking on the street because you got all your stuff, but it brings rodents and stuff because it's stuff. But then I had to stop and think about being in his shoes. You know how somebody says, have you ever walked a mile in my shoes? And if you haven't, you really don't know. And that's the first thing I thought, how people become institutionalized to certain situations. So maybe that's the thing for them. They're now institutionalized for being on the street because they showed all these nice sheds. They're not heated, but they're well insulated. And they have a cot and they also have places to wash up and they have security there. Because the first thing I think about when I see homeless is kids. I mean, when I lived in LA, we used to go out and feed the homeless in downtown LA, and it's nothing like you've ever seen before in your life. And I would literally be in tears. I mean, I had to get a grip on myself because, you know, who am I to cry when they're not crying? But the first time I did it, I had to sit in the car. It overwhelmed me. I'm one of those people, I want to take everybody home with me and I want to fix everything. So I could take everything, but when I start seeing kids, I just couldn't. It hurt me too much.
I feel that the way to fix homelessness or whatever, I feel like it really just needs to be a more equal status between just like for them to be shown and treated as humans, you know. Being with me, I'm very fortunate to have been raised in Oakland. I feel that with how close I am to poverty, it gives me a more humbling experience to, you know, wherever I go in life to remember where I came from. And, you know, it's taught me respect to my elders. There's a man at the church who I walk past almost every morning or every day, whether I was coming home from work or going to school. And I always would greet him with a good morning. And there's a happy lady, which wherever day of the week it is, she'll like happy Monday, happy Tuesday, happy Wednesday. And like certain of the homeless people within Oakland, I've seen since I was a little kid. And I actually like have a relationship with someone. I'm actually care for them. And like, some of them, I'll try to give out change as much as I can, but some of them I would have given like a $5 or $10 bill because they need to reach their goal in order to get their shelter and their food that day. And it's just a much more endearing thing for me for that.
And what I really find is kind of sad is that like the inequality that there is, especially with the fact that like some people are rich enough to have like several mansions and live so extravagantly while there's people literally sleeping on the streets. And whenever I like have a performance in Davies Symphony Hall or something like that, I always can't help but look at the homeless people and just think they're like sleeping right in front of City Hall because they have no place to go, while we have this grandiose this grandiose building, like, just grandiose buildings. They're, like, ridiculous, and it's where the higher income people go, and, like, you know, City Hall has a dome decorated in gold, that kind of, like, how unfair that is, and, like...
But the city center, I just want to say, the city center area really reflects of what Oakland is. For example, it may have the building and everything else, but within the Park of City Center, you have brothers and sisters and other people who are selling substances or just doing all types of stuff. So, I mean, the government place of Oakland really is a reflection of what the city's like. But before we move on to another subject, I just remember the other day in the news, they're talking about the union workers, how they didn't want the union workers to go on strike because it would put a hold on everything for them not to be able to serve the citizens of Oakland. And then it went on for 2 days. Do you guys know if it went on for 3 days?
It's on today.
Oh,
it's still on
today.
for 3 days?
Hooray.
3 days straight. What do you guys think about the union workers and their
They're committed.
outfit?
Mm-hmm. I gotta say, like, they do the dirty work of the city, and I absolutely stand with them if they feel like they're not getting enough credit for it, because they're just doing such essential things. They're taking care of children and animals and the streets covered in garbage and things like that, and the sewer system apparently as well.
I also think it's just, I don't know, I kind of get angered by it just because they want to say they don't have money to pay the union workers, but clearly they do. But next on the list, we have more sexual assault faults out with the resignation of Senator Al Franken.
Al Franken just resigned.
Yep.
So the thing about the resignation of Al Franken is not only did he resign, but if you check your facts, he gave a speech in which he questioned why he would need to resign when someone, and he didn't say the president, he just said someone in the Oval Office has not resigned. He said, how ironic. Did anybody see that on the news?
I didn't happen to catch on the news.
Yeah, I've been kind
Catch
of
other stuff.
I've been kind of avoiding politics and like relying on like comedy to like cope with it, like all the things that are happening. And I know that's like not the best way to get your news because it's it's kind of making fun, lighthearted fun of like things that are actually impacting people in a negative way, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Like when Saturday Night Live did a parody on the lady that was running for the vice presidency. What's her name? Sarah Palin. And they in the parody, Tina Fey said, and I could see and I could see Russia from my house. A lot of people took that for real. You know, they laughed, but they were like, yeah, she said she could see Russia from her house. She never really said that. She said something ridiculous like that. But, you know, Tina Fey took it to the next level. So sometimes when you watch the parodies, you know, people get confused as to whether the person really said that or is it Saturday Night Live. So, yeah, it's best to just check out the local news every now and again to see what's happening.
Did you have something to say? Or?
Yeah. To go back to what Miss Dolores was saying, like about Senator Al Franken, Al Franken. His exact quote was, I found it on NewYorkTimes.com. I, of all people, am aware that there is some irony in the fact that I am leaving while a man who has bragged on tape about his history of sexual assault sits in the Oval Office, and a man who has repeatedly preyed on young girls' campaigns for the Senate, with full support of his party, Mr. Franken said.
And I have some receipts for that.
Bam.
Lawsuit charges Donald Trump with raping a 13-year-old girl. A civil suit against Donald Trump alleging he raped a 13-year-old girl was dismissed in California in May 2016, refiled in New York in June 2016, and dropped again in November 2016. So
where are you seeing that at?
Snopes.com. But I remember hearing that through his election around these dates that these were brought up, that he did do this with an alleged girl. But because of his money, status, and power, of course he has the lawyers to be able to defend that and twist the law into whatever you want to make it.
I feel like with Donald Trump and like sexual assaults, like during his campaign, a lot of that stuff was brought out, but they also, like, we all know, like, his team, they like they had people like hack into the system and like do the votes and like the rumors of stuff like that, and like how we're like going back and forth with other countries like right now. So I feel like his team and like his self, they have a good way of covering up things with other important events. And I feel like that's why a lot of his, like when the video came out, when the video of him with his manager talking and like him, when it was actually him, and the video of him talking about the girl, all that, it was just a way to shed light off something else, and then just something to Trump, no pun intended, to go over that. And I feel like that's also why, like, when Mr. Franken did say that, I feel like that, like, people did forget about that. Like, this man, like, they're talking about, like, Harvey Weinstein and all these other men who have sexually assaulted people, but, like, our own, well, their own, I don't call him my president, their people's president, has done that, and no one said anything to him about it. And I also feel like that can go back to, like, slave times, when, like, these, like a long time ago, like, the first few presidents, like, when they had slaves that worked for them, and, like, they had black maids, and they would, like, rape them in their house, like, in the White House. I feel like that goes back to then, but we're not there, so, but a lot of people can
Do you think that the fallout with the firings from Hollywood and now into the business sector is Americans' way of saying, we're setting this up so we can come get you, Donald Trump? You know what I'm saying? Because, there's always been sexual assault in Hollywood. I mean, you know, it's never been, you know, really publicized, but it's always been there. So now that they're making people be held accountable for it, do you think that this is a setup? So when they get to Donald Trump, they can say, but everybody else got fired. but because look at how it's happening.
Wait,
It's just like a
perfect sense
domino
because
effect.
No one cared at all.
Exactly.
Until all of it. Hold
Yeah.
up, Miss Dolores, what did you just script right now? Hold
Think
up.
about it.
I hope that he does get prosecuted for his actions, because
Think
assaulting
about
a 13-year-old, that is just a child.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine that, like, she would be able to explain what happened to her and to defend herself.
But what a better way to set
she-
it up, because
yeah,
now
yeah.
you have it on record that all these people have been fired because it is illegal. It is something, very wrong with that. And now we're going to come after you next.
Yes.
So, I mean, why now?
And there's a bunch of suspicious activity, such as within certain videos or certain recordings of him allegedly doing things, he would try to say that, oh, that wasn't me in the video, that wasn't my voice. But then the other person on the interview said, but that was your voice. I'm the one that interviewed you. Yes, it was. And then, but there's also activities of, we see videos of him when he goes to hug his daughter. He puts his hand on her behind, or
Oh
he
my God.
said, if she wasn't my daughter, I'd
she-
be with her.
I'd get
Gross.
with her, like, if she wasn't my daughter. Like, that's weird.
Maybe I'd be dating her. Oh,
Oh,
my
And
God.
then,
Yes.
you didn't know that?
He said that.
He said that.
And also, Trump has defended Roy Moore for his sexual misconduct. So, defending other people within the White House that have sexually assaulted. and
But why
saying-
not Al Franken, though? Why didn't he defend Al Franken? And Al Franken is
It may-
definitely salty about it.
I feel like it may be, like, we have to think, or, like, not to forget that Trump was just a regular person. Like, he was just a rich businessman before he decided to run for president. So he could have had, like, a rivalry with this man before he became president, to where he feels like he doesn't want him to be defended. They might have, like, a certain rivalry. They could have been doing the same exact things together. Like, we never know. Like, a lot of these men, like, a lot of rich men roll with rich men. And a lot of rich men don't like certain rich men because they're rich for the right reasons, or they're doing the right thing with their money, and some aren't. So I
Or
feel
their
like,
businesses clash.
yeah, or they're like, yes, exactly.
Isn't Al Franken a Democrat? I do believe he's a Democrat, according to Wikipedia.
Is he?
He is.
Yeah, he's a Democrat, and that's why Trump
So-
isn't
That
defending
is-
So
him.
let's get him out of there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And he was a comedian on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, God.
So you never know what parodies he's done in his day.
Oh, no.
But he was a Democrat. So why defend him?
Exactly.
Does a president become the reflection of not necessarily all the people within that country, but a vast majority
Yes.
of that
Yes.
country?
Because I was talking, I forgot her name. She was my substitute in my class. But she said, like, when her and her family goes on vacation, they say they're Canadian, or they'll, like, act very, very nice. Like, they'll act different to, like, make people not seem like Americans are crazy, or, like, Americans aren't this representation of, like, rednecks and, like, crazy people, like, who have guns all the time, and just or Trump. And I
Yeah.
feel like everywhere you go, like, you have to say that, because, like, when I went to Chicago, like, the vibe is just different. Like, when everywhere else in different places, the vibe is different. And I think especially out the country, it's just people have this representation. Like, when Obama was our president, like, he was a nice president. Like, Obama got along with almost everyone. Like, all presidents that he met from different countries, they all got along. But Trump, like, he's so rude. Like, I forgot what country he had met with the president, and, like, he didn't want to shake his hand, and, like, he, like, stood in front of him. He, like, stood in front of the guy and, like, didn't let the guy get any room. Like, he's just blatantly disrespectful, and he feels like, since I'm the president, I get these privileges, but you're not the president of that country that you're visiting. And it's
Definitely
just a certain sort of respect. Like, if our own president doesn't have respect, then we look like we're all disrespectful, and we all have no respect for other people's countries or beliefs.
Yeah, last night I was really running through this, that like, you know, North Korea has, like, this depiction of the United States as this militaristic nation that's out to get them. And my immediate reaction is, like, I'm not that kind of a thing, but then we need to consider, like, the actions of our government.
What we're putting out there as a
Yeah.
people. There's an
The
old
biggest-
proverb that
yeah.
says the body follows the head. So when Trump decided to run for president, in my mind, I thought, what a perfect time for somebody like him. You got violence on TV, all this reality crap that's happening. You've got people that are just angry in this country. I mean, you honk at somebody and they could shoot you. So it was a perfect time for somebody like him to rise up, because all of a sudden, America is just so angry, and we're
And you know
we're
what?
paying for violence. Like I said, on TV, the music that you listen to, I'm gonna shoot you, and I'm gonna do. It's all violent. So for him to emerge and come out and start talking about people making nasty remarks, America was like, yes, that's what we love. It's almost like a gladiator situation where you put people in that ring and let them fight to the death. That's how America started looking like to me, because people just started becoming cold-hearted and they didn't care, and everything is funny and everything is, let me clown you. And so he's the king of clowning. You're fired. People would laugh at him on The Apprentice, but now he's sitting in the Oval Office, and I think he just came about at a time when the body was willing to follow the head. He's the head now, and look at the body. People are angry and disgruntled
Why? I want to know more.
and greedy.
I want to know more of why those people are angry. I know that, like, with hotter temperatures, people get more irritable.
No, it's because white people of America were tired of seeing a black president for 8 years, and we're trying to feel that their voices were silent.
I don't want to say all white people, because
Of
that's
course.
not everyone's beliefs, but I feel like a lot of those people that voted for Trump, like a lot of people who are racist and like still believe in like those rules and like the Confederate flag, I feel like a lot of those people, they showed up. They were like, well, because I feel like if there wasn't so many people who supported Obama and they didn't have, like, the amount of security that was on Obama when he first became president was ridiculous, because they could have assassinated that man if they wanted to because of his skin color. It was so many problems. People thought he was Muslim because he looked a certain way, or his name. Like, people mistaked it for Osama. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand it. And I recently, I got into a sort of a debate with the girl. She was African American, and she was like, Obama wasn't even fully black. What? Like, I really just wanted to just go off, because that man, he looks black to me. Anybody who sees him will say he looks black. I don't know. Like, and like Himeros was saying, like, it was people who were just tired of seeing a black man in office and a black man in power. And like, they were just like, it's our time to shine. Like, especially when Trump won, like, all these like fights with people in LA. I forgot, it was in Southern California. People were fighting. Like, a lot of people who supported Trump and the Confederate flag were fighting because, like, it was their time to shine, I guess you could say, and their time to rise up, because we all got our time to rise up when Obama became president.
Speaking of black people, we have Meghan Markle, who is the new bride of Prince Harry within America.
Black? What do you mean?
Black.
The first
black American woman.
I mean, yeah, to be now part of the royal family.
Wait a minute, she's black?
Yes.
Speaking of looking black.
Exactly.
Wow.
She's black. A lot of people, when I first saw her, honestly, I didn't think she has a light skin tone. A lot of people don't know that, because if you go on Wikipedia and stuff, it just says she's American, and everything just says American. But if you see her mom is African American. She's an African American woman, and I feel like that has a lot to, like, before we begun the show, we were talking, like, those kids, like, if they were to have kids, their kids can come out in a nice brown shade, a pretty, like, they can come out brown skin or dark skin or light skin, but in either way, they're going to be African American. And this is the first time that in the royal family that African American descent is within that blood, voluntarily in that bloodline. And we also were talking about how Queen Elizabeth's sister, on a series that Miss Dolores was watching called Crown on Netflix, Queen Elizabeth's sister wanted to marry a man who had got divorced, and the family were basically saying it's a sin to marry someone who's been divorced, no matter why they got divorced, and you couldn't remarry a man, or you couldn't marry a man who's getting remarried unless their spouse died. And we found out that Meghan Markle was previously married to a man for they were together for 3 or 4 years, and that just shows how time is changing, because of this woman who has been previously married is now marrying a prince and someone of such high power.
Well, I say amen, in that, the world, we go 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and this is one of those 2 steps forward motion. To get some black blood in the royal family, I feel could switch a lot of stuff out.
Yeah, and also, I do believe that the royal family, with, like, how the crown is passed down, it changed recently, that, like, girls aren't gonna be, if there's like a family with, like, 3 older girls and 1 younger son, the crown isn't going to skip to the younger son. It's going to go to the eldest girl, which is
wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Now,
times are changing.
Yeah. Do you think that, I don't know, with there about to be some black blood within the royal family, let's say, like, let's skip to, like, 25 to 50 years later, so, you know, we've had a couple children, the positions have switched, and certain people have passed away, and there's a different, like, power position held. Do you think that's going to basically, you know, change certain things to happen for, you know, the black people within London, or England, or, like, just in general? Do you feel like it's going to have some better...
No, I feel like since they're, like, I know you're saying, like, there are going to be changes, but I feel like there isn't because these rules have been set in place for hundreds of years, and it is a royal family. I feel like we're just going to have to see how it goes and how everything plays itself as these years progress, because they even if they have children, their children aren't in line, because his older brother does have 2 children.
And I think so there's a third on the way.
They have a third kid on the way, but they have a son. Their oldest child is a son, so, I mean, is a boy. So they will, like, his kids will be in line. So.
Well, thank you all for joining us on Information Friday with our topic of Hot Topics. I'm Himeros with my co-host
Mia Haskins
and
Anna Illis.
Listen next time on www.kosaradio.org, where minds, words, music, and rhymes meet.
Excellent. So now we know each topic can be 5 minutes long as we have 6. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So you guys did 6 topics.
Yep.
My computer, like, closed down and blocked us.